Let's be real. The status quo has created a lot of the world's problems, and we can't rely on business as usual to get us out of this mess we're in. That's why we're partnering with Thinknado this season. It's a dead simple 4-step process to blow open conventional thinking and get to truly unique and innovative ideas. It's not about finding the perfect answer. It's about starting with the right questions, pushing the edges, and then taking action. You can learn more about Thinknado at thinknado.com. That's ThinkNado.com. Thinknado, the positive action engine.
We're wrapping up season 1 with the people who make the show happen. The Doom and Bloom team breaks down our favorite episodes, from turning beach festivals into climate education to asking why we stopped playing outside in winter. We also discuss season 2, thinking about how to change things up and figuring out how to bring more joy and weirdness into the podcast. Enjoy. All right, y'all. Well, this is it. Season 1. We're done. For now, at least. This is a special episode. I'm excited to be doing this with you all. So maybe before we get started, we can do a quick round of intros. For those listening, I am here with the Doom and Bloom team. These are the unsung heroes that help put on each and every episode of Doom and Bloom. We have Holden, we have Camille, and we have Jackie. So love to have you all do a quick little intro, and then let's talk about season 1, what we liked and some ideas that we got from each episode. So I'm going to hand it over to Camille first to introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Camille Graham, and I am the Doom and Bloom podcast producer, behind the scenes, doing the writing, description, social media, all that jazz. And just a little bit about me, I am in the Ventura area, doing a lot of agriculture, outreach, and education. I'll hand it off to Holden.
Hi, thanks, Camille. Holden Hardcastle. I am the editor for Doom and Bloom in San Francisco, and I have a background in art and creative direction for the past 20 plus years, and now focusing on nonprofits and the environmental space. And with that, over to Jacqueline.
Hey everyone, I'm Jacqueline Demchick. I'm from New York, and I'm a UX and graphic designer. I do all the design work for this show, so any of the podcast thumbnails that you see or anything on social media, those are my designs, along with collaboration from our lovely team.
Cool. And yeah, it's been amazing working with you all. It's just a little insider info. It took us a couple months to even just get to that first episode, and it was a lot of great conversations with you all. So I'm super thankful for you all being on the team. I had a great time collaborating with you all, and here's to season 2. So with this episode, we decided as a team to come together and talk about season 1. Many of us were on each and every episode scribing. We had a digital whiteboard that we used to capture the ideas in real time with me and the guests. So Camille, for example, would scribe my ideas, and Holden would scribe the guests' ideas in real time. And we have this whole structure in this digital whiteboard that we use to keep track of all the ideas each and every step in the Thinknado process. So that was really fun. So with that, each and every person on the team has heard every episode. We figured, why not bring the whole team on the mic and talk about their favorite episode and come up with some of their ideas and just have a conversation with the team. Who wants to go first? Who wants to jump in and talk about one of their favorite episodes of season 1?
I could kick it off. I wanted to revisit Brian Stancheski's episode. So his episode was called Jolly Sand, and there are a lot of themes of community, immersive experiences, and visibility for different climate solutions. I'll go through the process and just pick out a couple things that stood out to me throughout the Thinknado process, and then I'll wrap it up with some ideas it sparked. So for the wait, why, something that stood out to me was, wait, why don't people know how to incorporate sustainable solutions, and why don't they even know about them? So that was something striking to me. Like, these solutions are out there, but there's a gap between them existing and them being implemented. And then moving on to the maybe step, one of the statements were, maybe we should treat sustainability as a product, as a way to make it desirable. So I thought that was an interesting approach that is kind of lacking at the moment. And then you guys picked out 2 cards. the Thinknado cards, and we had Jolly and Sand. And this sparked a bunch of ideas in the what if section, such as beach festivals about climate solutions. You're coming up with experiences like glass sculptures that were originally made from the sand that showcase different climate solutions. And even creating a mock beach inland, so that way people who don't live near the coast could experience the different changes that climate change is creating on those coastal communities. Like I said, a lot of these ideas were very experiential. So that got me thinking about like what experiences are really popular today and are gaining traction. So it got me thinking about these different immersive art experiences that you're seeing like all over Instagram. Like you could touch a wall and like the whole piece of art changes. It also got me thinking about these different spaces where they create these life-size games, like almost like an arcade, but you're using your body to move along this game. And for some reason, the word Jolly Sand got me thinking about some of the characters in Candyland. So one idea I had was creating like a life-size Candyland. So you're moving through this building through different areas. And instead of like the peppermint forest or something like that, like you're going through the Amazon or you're going through these different climates on Earth that like you wouldn't necessarily be exposed to in your everyday life. And throughout this journey, you're going to see how the climate is affecting these communities, but also the solutions that they're using to overcome it. So like you have to overcome climate change in order to kind of like win the game. So you're like learning and playing at the same time. So I thought that was like a cool way to combine the education, the immersiveness, and try to make it like more desirable for people to actually learn about what's out there. Another thing that I thought this solution could kind of bring into the world was that we're kind of in our own little bubbles. We know what's happening right near us. When I did the climate-based fellowship, I was exposed to points of view from people all over the world. I was hearing about what was affecting them, what their problems were, and it was truly eye-opening. So I thought the solution could kind of bring that world perspective to life. Another thing I was thinking about was Disney World. They are the masters of experiential design. So maybe even some sort of ride like soaring that brings you over like the orange groves, and Tomorrowland, showcasing these sustainable solutions in a super exciting light. Yeah, so those are all my thoughts about this episode. Love to hear what you guys think.
Ryan's episode was actually on my list as well, and it was interesting because when I took it as like creating these experiential, going down these same whole rabbit hole as like, oh, let's create an experiential or something experiential. Like we're doing a lot of this already, and maybe it needs to happen more inland with. So I do a lot of like trash pickups, and it is a grassroots, like there's sometimes where it's like we show up, it's like we don't know what we're doing, or like we're trying to do it, but then everyone leaves at the end of say like 2 hours of picking up trash. Not only do you get to see the before and after, but everyone after 2 hours of picking up trash was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. And like everyone's like, dare I say, jacked just because they're like, what else are we gonna do? And so that was one of the things where it's like, as simple as like doing a cleanup, right? Like just go out for 2 hours with like a group of friends, and whether you're picking up like a dumpster full or like a little trash can or whatever it is, I think though that was something that was like, oh, like that's an easy thing to do, and you could do it tomorrow, right? Going back to that original idea. But I love the idea. Like, hey, how do you create a ride, or how do you make sustainability cool? And I think we've talked a lot about this maybe off mic, but do you make it cool by like not talking about it? So you're talking about like what product does outside of the environmental movement.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've heard that from a lot of people in the climate space. They don't tend to lead with this is more sustainable. They tend to lead with this is better and here's why. Oh, and it's sustainable too.
Yeah, I feel like both, from hearing both those ideas, the common pattern is how can we find fun and silliness in what we're doing. And then, hey, actually, sustainability is maybe this afterthought, but it's really great for the world. And so being able to incorporate, yeah, like this, trash cleanup might sound silly, but it's actually really fun and therapeutic. And everyone loves using those little trash pickers. Like, it's just fun. Or, hey, like, let's go on this experiential roller coaster and have a blast. And it's for like this great cause or your fun. It's like, there's different ways to go about it, but the spectacleness of it and people just kind of coming together to have a good time, I think is where you lead off. I remember when we first listened to Brian's episode, when he was really getting into that word spectacle of it, I immediately thought of all of the things happening in New York at the time where there are these random competitions of like who looks like Timothy Chalamet the most or who looks like this the most. And it was so, again, this isn't, necessarily talking about sustainability, but it was just like a silly little thing for people to get organized and have fun with. And it's like, why can't we do something around those, terms with sustainability where it just gathers people together, it gets media, it gets attention, and then, people are probably learning and growing awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is why psychology, behavior change, these types of approaches or studies or research, I think that's why it's so important to incorporate that and think about that in line with these hard, tangible approaches and solutions, right? We can't just expect solar panels to do the work. Like, we need to figure out what's going to be the driver to make someone want to buy and install those solar panels. It's both the tangible and the intangible that we need to figure out. And one quick note on, Jackie, your comment about Tomorrowland, I think that also speaks to the idea of seeing what's possible. CES, Consumer Electronics Show, happens every year, and people go there and they just gawk at all the cool technology, and they start to see how that technology can be incorporated in their lives. This Tomorrowland idea showcasing this positive solar punk vision of the world, I think, is totally great. I would love to see, maybe it's not even a touring exhibit, maybe it's just more stationary exhibits grounded in local and regional solutions and approaches. Because what's happening in the Bay Area, the solutions and approaches that we need to invest in the Bay Area is going to look very different than Ohio or very different than London. And so can we create these experiences that highlight what's happening in someone's backyard and still inspire that awe factor and that cool factor? So yeah, I think there's something around that spectacle, experiential coolness that can be tapped into, where it's highlighting solutions and approaches that are tangible, but also at the same time tapping into something deeper within ourselves, that emotional level, that psychological level. Holden, you mentioned that you also wanted to talk about Brian's episode. Anything else from Brian's episode you wanted to bring up since we're on his?
No, I think we hit it. I think my big takeaway was just that, going back to this idea of what's something that you can do on Monday. You can go do an organized cleanup and they're easy to set up. But going back to I like the idea of the spectacle, because another thing that is great about doing cleanups, a lot of times you can get like the big high visibility vests. And for whatever reason, people love wearing. It's never been anything that I've been into, but people are like, oh, you ran out of vests? Oh, and it was like, here, like, well, I'm sure we can go find something, but people like just the big yellow vest and they want to be seen. And so I think having some outlandish clothing that, again, is not necessarily about the environment, but it's like, hey, here's this funny thing that you can wear over like your serious, I don't know, I wear a lot of black, but you can wear it over your like serious black clothing. And so I absolutely support the spectacle, and it doesn't always have to be like a big Disney ride.
Well, to plug Katie Patrick, we had her on the podcast during the SF Climate Week event. It was live. And I'm not going to get too much into her specific episode, but I bring her up only because a lot of her work centers around behavior change and the psychology behind it. So for those listening, definitely check out track 5. Our 2 words were fancy pug. That was a fun episode there. But definitely look into Katie Patrick's work, since we are talking about more of the intangible, emotional side of taking climate action. Camille, what about you?
Yeah, Zoe's episode titled Integrity Ballet was definitely really of interest and something I wanted to talk to. So just starting off with themes and things that really stood out to me was something Zoe kept saying that was she's trying to, express was why our business is so focused on immediate profit and not long-term impacts. And I think this is definitely a plague that has kind of taken over our world at the moment, where we are constantly thinking of status quo, of how do we reach those quarterly benchmarks and get that financial flow in as soon as possible. And when we think of social environmental, benefit and investment, that is not the case that we just can't do. So if we wanted to, work on some environmental project, we might not see the effects until 20 years later. And so this is something that we definitely need to change that narrative. And this is something that kind of Zoe was going into. And I think one of the first cards she pulled was the word integrity. And where she was going with it was essentially she was saying, integrity means to me like doing good things without recognition, making sure you're holding people accountable and for climate change, but also, this is impacting real people. So not just talking statistics or numbers, but let's share the real stories of people impacted by climate. Let's spread that connection, because so many people are still feeling disconnected from climate change, even though, there are floods, fires, hurricanes happening everywhere. And at some point, somebody probably knows that this has affected a friend or a family. People are still feeling very, very disconnected. And so if we could create these relatable stories that people could then feel more proactive on wanting to do something about climate change and less reactive, I think that would really jumpstart we need to start thinking about the long-term impacts and not just the short term. And how that relates to design, nearly immediately is just we have to start getting in that habit of creating these products, these solutions to people's problems that are going to help people in the long term. We can't just be producing things in this mass production type of way that will be, winds up in the waste facility in a couple of weeks. What can we be producing that's sustainable, that's regenerative, but also is solving like a huge problem to these climate change extremities that are going on. And how could we figure that out is probably talking to these people directly that are experiencing these impacts. And the solution that Mark and Zoe worked up was creating this meditation app. And I loved this idea. I mean, I am a yoga enthusiast. I'm a big meditator. And so I thought this was just a really great, simple solution of designers and just people in general are constantly thinking, how do I keep my job? How do I, provide food for my family? How do I produce designs that I'm proud of? And I think, meditation keeps us grounded in this way. But if there were group meditations on this app, right, is what they talked about, it creates a space of community, but also a space where people are counting on you. It's motivating. You need to show up. It's really easy to not do something if it's only yourself that is kind of forcing you. And what they were going down for this meditation app was, it'll be a community where, you can really lift others up and all come together. My interpretation, so I guess I'll kind of take it a step further. So Zoe also got the card ballet, and I'm going to bring this to my solution in a second. But the ballet card that Zoe chose, I loved her interpretation. She really represented it through the acts of storytelling, how your stories are being told. And this went so hand in hand with everything she was talking about in her episode. But immediately when I heard of ballet, I thought of this well-rehearsed dance. And it kind of makes me feel like that's what the world is stuck in. We're stuck in this well-rehearsed dance that we're going round and round in, chasing that short-term profit. Nothing's really changing. And it's, ballet is precise. It has very specific technique. It has stayed the same for forever. And though it is a beautiful way of dance, it's not necessarily contemporary or jazz or improv, where there's all of these, really expressive forms of dance to me that really challenges curiosity and collaboration and kind of like steps back from control. And where like my solution then comes to is I kind of wanted to take the meditation app a step further. Specifically in this world we're living in, it's really easy for designers and just people in general to feel uninspired or a sense of paralysis, especially maybe wanting to do so much and you don't even know where to start. And because we're constantly in this state of doing, when was the last time people actually just sit and be and think? When do we grant ourselves that time to, while you're eating your food, you just sit and you think. You're not watching TV, you're not reading a book. And it sounds really simple, but human beings have almost become these machines, right? Where we need creative outlets. We need times to let our imagination just let loose. And it's a lot harder to do this. And so I was thinking of almost creating retreats. Imagine a space where you have creatives connect with themselves and they get to reflect on what kind of world they want to, help build and collaborate from that place of alignment, right? It's not just self-care, but it's visionary fuel. And so if we had these retreats for yoga, for meditation, somatic therapy, and you're going with a group of designers and, together you guys get to kind of reconnect with your inner child, but also your future self. And it's a version of how am I dreaming of this better world? But I'm surrounding myself with these artists and these change makers that I feel comfortable with. And I think that is the key, because I recently completed my yoga training. And by the end, we did this incredible vocal somatic sound healing. And I had honestly never experienced, I've done a fair share of sound healing, I guess, classes in my life, workshops. And this one, I have never even come close to experiencing anything like this. I mean, it was exhausting. It was amazing. And it was because I felt so safe and comfortable with all these amazing, people that I'd been around. And so I think that could be created with these group of creatives that you already feel connected to. You share the same morals and beliefs. It wouldn't just be more inspired art, but I think it would be really thoughtful design at that point where you all just did this retreat together and now you're feeling these feelings of healings and you're with the community. And, where does that go now? How are we so with ourselves that we could just push that forward and ride on that high in a world that definitely prizes output over introspection? I think we just need more spaces where we can just be. And it's, that active imagining is seen as essential and not just extra.
Sign me up.
It kind of makes me think, this is like a little bit of a tangent, but it makes me think about one of my studio classes in college. And they told us just go out into the town and find a problem. And we had to just explore the town and observe, which kind of made me think about what you were saying, Camille, about just sitting, not being on a device, looking at the world around you. And it's really amazing the things you see when you're focused on seeing and not just wrapped up in something else. So I thought that was pretty cool.
The things we're saying are so simple, but, because we've gotten so caught up with, living our lives, we really we're not present anymore. And so when we do challenge ourselves to really observe, life is just a lot greener.
For sure.
So I have a 1-year-old and I'll be on my computer, doing stuff, right? Whatever that looks like. And he'll come over and try to pull at the screen. And there are times I'm no, I don't want to say bat him away, but I'm trying to do stuff. And I really have to do exactly what you're talking about, Camille. It's close everything down and I'll just sit. And it's okay, what do you want to do? Or what do you want to and we'll just sit there and stare at each other. Or yesterday we ended up outside and we're just playing in the grass and not doing anything, or at least not doing anything from my perspective. But from a 1-year-old's perspective, the world is crazy, right? And so it's
Right.
if you go out there and look, it's there's bugs, there's insects, there's trees and grass and all this sort of stuff. And to your point, it's if you do nothing and you stop and start looking around uninterrupted, then you start to see all these amazing things that you wouldn't see before.
Yeah, and I think all of this is making me think, without having that time to just sit and to think, which is a lost art. How would you develop the values that you represent and the beliefs that you want to integrate in your world? Integrity is all about that. It involves being committed to certain principles, encompassing honesty and trustworthiness. It's about aligning words and commitments with your actions. But if you don't allow yourself to just sit and even think of those values or think of what do I actually believe in? What am I actually fighting for? Not to use a violent analogy, but like what am I actually fighting for? What am I speaking up towards? If you don't allow yourself to think that, then yeah, what's the point? And it'd be interesting to kind of do a poll of designers to stop them and ask, hey, what are your top 3 values? Would many of them have any responses to that? Would they have them top of mind, or would they have to think about it? Do they even have any to begin with? I don't know. It's interesting. And I think the idea of this retreat would be interesting. I mean, we could take inspiration from other types of retreats, but what would a retreat look like through the lens of the design industry and designers? It's one part retreat, maybe one part conference, one part workshop, one part do nothing. Right? No Figma, no laptops. Zoe's episode for me was really special. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Camille, the idea of using personal stories as a way to inform designers and how they make better decisions. The one thing I thought of is you have these websites, these matchmaking services for journalists like Quoted and Help a Reporter. I'm wondering if there's something similar to that for designers, where you have people who have experienced some sort of climate emergency and that they're willing to share their stories with designers, those in the creative space, and that there's some sort of web service that connects the two. You know, that's kind of my think wrong idea, right? Where you can have a designer who might be working in the regenerative agriculture space. Can they get connected to a farmer who has experienced loss because of their farm being washed out by floods? Or could they be connected to a farmer who has been practicing regenerative practices for quite a while? And then the meditation thing, yeah, what would Calm or Headspace look like if it was a meditation app for designers? What would those prompts be? What would those guided meditation narratives be for creative folks? To kind of zoom out and maybe to wrap this part up, I'm looking at our wall of podcast episodes. The theme that I'm wanting to bring up is the importance of connecting with others, the importance of connecting with community members on the ground, the importance of connecting with colleagues and teammates within your company or studio, the idea of just connecting with solutions and approaches that are in your backyard. I think we need to, as designers, understand that the more we get off of our laptops and away from these apps like Figma and Adobe, the more that we can feel confident in pursuing this kind of work, knowing that they're just people, just like you and me, experiencing the same anxiety, the same frustration, the same stress, but also at the same time, the same hope and the same inspiration, seeing others on the front lines taking climate action in whatever way they're doing, right? Whichever action, whichever space that they're in. And so I think it's all about just connection. And I've said this often, I think really the root cause of what we're experiencing with our climate breakdown, you can trace it back to disconnection. The fact that we don't have a connection with our food, with the clothes that we wear, with the products that we buy. We are disconnected from each other, our neighbors. We're disconnected from even ourselves, disconnected from nature and the world around us. I'm on the Doom and Bloom page now. The theme that I'm seeing is just, it's all connection. It really is. So how could this theme go into season 2 as we prepare for what season 2 might look like?
That's got me thinking about for season 2, what if we start making those connections? Bring 2 guests on that are from totally different worlds and see what kind of solutions and how they could lend their skill sets to one another.
I was thinking about episode 7 with Stevie Bales, because that really hit me pretty hard as I was helping put it together. You started talking about wearing values on your sleeves and doing the right thing, and looking at where we are in our current ecosystem And I feel like lately I've been disenfranchised by a lot of the organizations that I thought were like, these are the guiding lights, whether it's seeing Tim Cook at inaugurations or these people that I thought were leaders in our society. And like, actually, I think to earlier points that were made is like, they don't care. They're just out there trying to make a buck. And what happened to this vision that I thought, and I'm going to go back to Apple again, and I've got an orchard here, right? Like I love the Apple products, but it was like, even their latest marketing seems so disingenuous. It's moved away from what I thought they were about. And I've now started and going back to, it's like, I want to do the right thing. I was like, as I've spun up my own agency with a focus on NGOs and nonprofits, it's like doing the right thing, paying people the right amount, and not looking to these larger organizations for leadership or inspiration anymore, because they're just going to change. Or not that they're just going to change, but it's like, I don't see a lot of them out there anymore that I was like, oh, this is, or I saw them, right? Like when I was in my 20s and 30s, but they're gone. And I'm like, who's next? And I'm sure we'll edit all this out. But I love the idea of going back to connection. It's like, how do we connect with each other, and going back to the individual as a group, and maybe we become a different organization. But it's like, I can't rely on the Apples and the Amazons and all these organizations that I thought were like very cool when I was just starting out in design. I was like, man, this is where I want to work, and these are the things and these are the values that they hold. And turns out, I'm gonna swear, it's all bullshit, right? Like nobody cares. Like they don't care. They're just out there to make a buck. So I think our connections to each other become like more valuable than any sort of t-shirt that I get from somebody or a product that I get. And it's like, hey, how do I connect with Mark, Camille, and Jacqueline just to like, yeah, just to feel good, because Apple's not doing it anymore for me.
Yeah.
I think that's so real, though. I mean, you really think about how far we've come from what community actually means, because, are you surrounded by community that would die for you, that would move mountains for you, that would, be at your beck and call, that live right next to you, that,
Yeah.
you're another family. And, with just the current climate and how everybody lives, it almost feels like a fantasy. And it goes back to the connection and the trust of being able to, I can count on these local designers because I know that they're wearing their values on, their sleeve, and they're honest, and we're a family versus, if we're talking more about the big corps of Apple or Amazon, it's like, I don't know anything about you. There might be, there's greenwashing involved, that, it's a whole nother beast that, we've come so far from, that causes a lot of loneliness. Katie Patrick talked about that a bunch, of just, we're all lonely and we've got our screens, but we don't have animals or anything. So it's crazy.
Maybe this is a good segue into thinking about season 2. We have the team here, right? So let's do this. Maybe we just do kind of a short little Thinknado session on us about season 2. I know we've talked a little bit about this during our calls here, but we haven't really put pen to paper and come up with a format for season 2. It might just be the same what we've done in season 1. It could be totally different, but maybe this is an opportunity for us to run through the Thinknado session. So with that, I have my Thinknado deck in front of me. So I'm going to call out on you all to pick the cards that I'm holding up, and from there,
who's picking the card here?
I'll pick.
Okay.
Hold in. You pick the first round. So your left, middle, your right.
Let's go middle.
Middle. Okay. All right. We have Childlike.
I like this.
Okay. There you go. There you go. Okay.
That's a good one.
All right. Who wants to pick the other deck here?
Go for it, Camille.
Right.
Okay. Left, right, middle.
Right.
Your right.
Yes.
We have an image of a water slide, a very complex water slide, but with snow.
Snow.
So
Whoa.
this looks like a
Interesting.
water slide, like a water park, an image of a water park in the
I
middle of
like it.
winter.
I like that a lot. Water park. I mean, come on. That's pretty good.
All right. How about Jackie? You decide, do we keep this pair or do we switch out one of these?
I love this pair. Let's keep it.
All right. So we have Childlike, Water Park in the winter. All right. So thinking about season 2, how can we use these two cards, either literally or as inspiration, to think about how we might want to approach season 2? So it's open. We're reimagining season 2. Again, it could be very similar to season 1, or use this as an opportunity for us to think wrong about the format, about the guests, about what we talk about even. So again, Childlike, Water Park in the winter.
I love this idea. I now have 2 kids, and I think previously I would have been like, "Oh, child, like in the water park in the winter, why would I do that?" Whereas I feel like my 2 children would like look at a water park in the winter and be like, "Heck yeah, let's do it. Let's put on some big puffy coats and go shoot down some slides, right?" And I think it's only the adults who've decided, hey, it's cold. Let's shut down this like this twisting plastic thing in the winter. When it's like, no, you can do this here. We find it in San Francisco. Like there are slides built out of cement, and it's like all you need is some cardboard and you can slide right down it. And the kids don't care about getting holes in things. And so I think like tearing it up, like messing with things. It's like, oh, this is not what this is supposed to be used for, but we're gonna do it anyways, or maybe this isn't the time for it. Like, right? We put a lot of those emphasis. It was like, oh, this isn't the right time. There's like, well, if not now, then when, right? Like the world is burning. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's totally challenging like the status quo, just like looking at it through childlike eyes. I love that.
Totally. Just doing some weird stuff. That's funny.
So with this, are we the adults or are we the kids?
Maybe we are the adults, but we need to become the kids.
Childlike, exactly. Yeah. How does this tie into making a podcast? Do we just like say, fuck it, let's just go? Who cares if it's cold? Who cares if there's snow on the ground? Let's just go and do this really fun thing that we normally do, but perhaps there's some sort of reservation because of it being in the dead of winter. And so how does that translate into creating a season of a podcast? Is it that we lean into the uncomfortableness of topics, perhaps? Do we lean into a very different format that we haven't even thought about just yet? And we say, screw it, we're still going to have fun. Let's just go at it.
I think, hey, we're going to get like wilder and crazier. We're going to loosen up. And if we go off of format, I mean, I was instantly, as you were talking about this, like thinking about snow days, which then took me to, there's an NFL commercial where they're talking about like the pure joy some of these guys have. And it's like, it opens up and it's a snow day and these guys like start throwing around like a football, but it's like, and they're like, it's a snow day, let's go. And maybe bringing back some of that joy, right? Because even in the news, there's so much, and I don't know what it's going to be like next year. Hopefully it's better, but it's like in the news, it's like, fuck, like you don't even want to listen to NPR anymore or whatever it is. And you're just like, I just want something that's like, this is all like, this is an amazing thing. Or it's like, oh, you know what? Like this is broken. Here's what I'm going to do with it and like figure out something else cool to do with it. So me, I'd love to see it's like, yeah, we can start with, and maybe I think this is like perfect doom and gloom. Like, here's this thing that sucks, and we're gonna make it awesome now, right?
Yeah, totally. I like that. Finding like the joy in all the little things. And it's got me thinking about like, Holden, what you were saying earlier about just going into the backyard with your kid and there's bugs and that's so cool to them. Like, how can we take these little things we take for granted and like really find the joy in them and what they mean?
Or like getting dirty, right?
Yeah.
Got dirty. And I think before I would be like, oh, I'm dirty, but now I'm like, oh, it's cool. Like, I think there's actual science around this idea of like, if you get put your hands in dirt for like 5 minutes and dig. There's something about the texture or like just being outside and plants or whatever it is that you're like, oh, great, I'm dirty. My, like, again, going back to like our clothes being super clean and not, but it's like, oh, I've got some dirt on my clothes. Or I do a cleanup where it's like we're digging and I come back and I'm sweaty and I was like, oh, and I have like a meeting a half an hour later and I have to take a shower and do all that sort of stuff. But I was like, I feel so good afterwards. And I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to like do work. And so I think there's something about taking something that's broken, making it like fun or awesome. And even if it fails, like kids don't mind failing. I think we try to do this on the first season, but it's like, really push it, right? This may not work, but we're at least gonna like give it a shot. Yeah. But it's gotta be like, are you at least having a good time doing it, right?
Yeah.
All this is making me think, when I hear childlike and I'm thinking playful, all these kids are always thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I want to talk to all these people and then learn, what do I want to, be an astronaut, or do I want to become a evil scientist? Like, there's all these different things. And I think that is something we could absolutely intertwine into the next season. And, bringing in the tipsy topsy snowy water slide. There's so many random pipes and ports and connections that don't really make sense, and yet they all lead to the same place. And so I'm wondering, adding those two things, what if we have lots of different guest speakers that literally don't have anything in common, and yet they do, where it's like we have designers, but we also have farmers, and we also have chefs, and we have doctors, and we have all these different people that kids would love to, hear about. But it's like, what do we all have in common, right? How do we all work together? Because, we all want to have a better world. We all want to have the bloom. And so how do we intertwine all these tipsy-topsy random pipes and show there is connection, there is community, we all need each other?
Yeah, like speaking to like the child and all these designers that are now adults, and like how do we bring that child out of them? And I'm noticing a theme of like juxtaposition that we even had in season 1 with the 2 different Thinknado cards. Like a lot of the times they have nothing to do with one another. And also like what Holden was saying, like you're getting dirty and then you're getting clean to go to work. And even like the name of our podcast, Doom and Bloom, like we have all these different opposing ideologies going against each other, and tying into what Camille said, having these different people from different backgrounds and seeing what do they have in common.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is great. I'm glad that we did this. You got the gears in my head turning. Let's definitely regroup later as we prep for season 2. We have lots of time to figure that out, but I'm really glad that we kicked this off and used this last episode of season 1 as a way to not only recap the first season with some episodes that spoke to us, but also to imagine or even reimagine this podcast going into the second season. So with that, this was a great conversation. I'm glad that we were able to do this. And again, thank you all for your amazing work over the last, has it been a year plus? Yeah,
it has. One year.
Wow, geez. It took a little bit to get going, but I think once we got going, we found our stride, and I think we nailed it. Looking forward to season 2, definitely. This podcast is really about creating space. Space for people to think out loud, space for wild ideas to collide, space where designers can share their thoughts beyond Figma or Zoom. Every episode is a collaboration, not just between me and the guests, but with the team behind the podcast, Holden, Jackie, and Camille. Doom and Bloom isn't another talking head podcast where experts lecture about problems we already know exist. This is a brainstorm podcast, a creative virtual workshop, a place where imagination thrives. We know what we need to do to address our climate breakdown. What we're missing is the collective courage to imagine them working at scale, to see the connections between disciplines, to stop asking permission and start building. Season 1 was us figuring out how to do this. Season 2, we're leaning into the weird, bringing together smart people who have no business being in the same conversation, finding the threads that connect them, making space for the unexpected. This is the work. It's not just talking about climate action, it's creating the conditions for it to happen. See you next season. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Doom and Bloom. A big thank you to the incredible team behind the podcast, Camille Graham, Jacqueline Demshek, Holden Hardcastle, and our music producer, Albert Paul. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment, and definitely share it with someone who can use a little bloom in their life. Follow us on Instagram at climatedesignersorg, and don't forget to tag us in your projects. We'd love to see how our episodes inspire you. You can also email us at hello@climatedesigners.org to share how you're turning inspiration into action. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, it's Eric from the Climify podcast. Are you feeling overwhelmed by climate doom? I am. That's why this season on Climify, I'm talking to 6 incredible women who are authors, CEOs, and everyday changemakers who are tackling climate change with a side of optimism. They are proof there's real hope and real action happening right now. So listen to Climify wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Climify Podcast. Let's get inspired together.